So we'll go ahead and get started. Good afternoon and welcome to the Planning with the End in Mind IEP Decisions and Inclusive College Outcomes presented by Kristen Wright and Stephanie Coleman. I'm Celise Heron, Program Support Specialist, and I am thrilled to be your moderator for the breakout session. First, a few logistics. This session will be recorded and archived on the conference agenda page after the conference for 1 month. Closed captioning is available by clicking on the CC button on the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. The interpretation icon is in the same area and will provide access to Spanish translation. We will ensure the ASL interpreters are spotlighted along with the presentation and the presenters. Please ensure your volume is muted to avoid background distractions while presenters speak. We encourage you to engage with others in the chat when possible. Keep your camera on so we can see your faces. And with that, Kristen and Stephanie, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much for the great introduction. We are really excited to be here with you today and excited to see some familiar faces in the room. My name is Stephanie Coleman, and I am a coordinator at the Sacramento County Office of Education and work under two projects, California Includes and the California Center for Inclusive College. And I am here. Actually, literally sitting right next to me is Kristen Wright. She's the Executive Director of Inclusive Practices at Sacramento County Office of Education, and she is the co-lead for California Center for Inclusive College, and California Includes as well. And so we are sitting outside. And so if there is a point where the sound gets weird, if you'll just tell us, we're going to try and do the best we can with being in a different location than usual. But we're really, really thrilled to be here to share this message with you today. We want to know who's in the room. We see some friends, but we'd still love to know who are you and what, on the screen, you've got some options to choose from, but you don't have to be held to those. You can tell us who you are and what your role is and why you're at SIP and why you came to our session. And if you'll drop that in the chat, it will help us know how we can better tailor today's message directly to our audience. All right, we got a teacher in the house from LAUSD. Fantastic. Director of Student Services. Hey, Kevin. Got a adaptive PE teacher. We got teachers. This is so great. We're so excited. And we have Rebecca. It's so good to see you. A parent, another parent, an OT. Got such a good audience today. This is a good broad audience. All right, keep putting them in. We're going to keep an eye on them, but we're going to give you a little overview of what we're hoping to cover today. We're going to be discussing how creating each journey with belonging in mind is critical to ensuring choice and opportunity at every stage in life. So we know that every choice we make gives us, it's a kind of a fork in the road. And we want to be able to make sure that we're planning with the end in mind as we get to those forks. And then we're also going to talk about how designing for variability and disability, both at home, at school, and in the community can really empower families and professionals to co-create a wider range of opportunities for life after high school. And so we're really looking forward to being able to share some ideas with you and have you share some ideas back with us. All right, Kristen, you're up.
All right. So this conversation is so incredibly personal to me. And you're looking on the screen at my beautiful, brilliant daughter, Shelby. She is at her favorite place in the community, which is called the Torch Club. It is one of Sacramento's oldest bars. Shelby's over 21, so she is a 27-year-old self-determined woman who has chosen a variety of things she wants to do, and going to the Torch Club every Sunday and Thursday night happens to be one of those things. Now, I'm not talking to you about this because Shelby just loves music, which is something that she does love. This is really symbolic of what we're going to talk about today. And I don't know that I expected, 10 years ago when she first went to the Torch Club for the first time, and then later on when she could only go to the 21 and over things, I didn't realize how community would become such an important part of her life. And I also underestimated community that was beyond our regular family and community in our neighborhood, how much we sometimes rob the community of opportunities to know people of lots of different diversities. And so I'll tell you a little bit more about that later, but I hope you don't mind if I share a little bit of my personal journey with Shelby and Shelby's journey, because, you know, at 27, looking back, so many things that I wish I would have thought about and done differently in school. And I think I was very focused on Shelby being included, which is incredibly important. But I don't think I ever heard the word belonging until just the last, 5 years or so, when there has become more of an intentional focus and understanding that inclusion being there is not belonging, and you can't really have true inclusion without belonging. So Shelby's journey, for some of you who already know, she was in a home hospital program until she was in the 5th grade. And she was in a home hospital program because I was one of those parents who was very protective and also bought into a narrative of children with very significant medical and physical and intellectual disabilities could not be served well in a general education setting. Obviously, I've learned a lot since in the last 27 years, but because of what I didn't know, Shelby didn't start in an inclusive program with her peers till she was in the 5th grade. And the picture you see there is Shelby in the 5th grade. And as a parent of a child with disabilities, our sense of belonging as parents and families are as critical to our children's journeys as their journeys themselves being included, because the way that we feel and that others feel and treat us as parents and families has a direct correlation between how much we feel comfortable as parents, and I'll speak for myself only because every parent has a different journey and experience, how much Shelby feels included and a sense of belonging. The school you see there now, Shelby felt an incredible sense of belonging because she was welcomed there. It wasn't something that I had to beg for or push them for. And I think that's an important point. While we do need to all continue to fight for the right to be included, we also want to make sure that we're setting up places of belonging. So as educators and as our work in the county office and with districts across the state and the work that SIP does, we want to set up those scenarios where students like Shelby and her friends there feel like they are welcome and not a problem, and that we have set up situations and classrooms and other students and ways of being that are incredibly inclusive. Next slide. So I look back now, and I don't know that I ever asked myself or was asked what a belonging, a full life looks like that is grounded in belonging, right? We're always thinking about, employment or really, really specific things and goals, or even just trying to make it until tomorrow, right? Because when you have students and children that have very challenging sensory needs and behavioral needs, sometimes we're just trying to make it through the next day. So obviously, we can't blame ourselves for not thinking of everything. However, now that Shelby is 27, and now that we're trying to build that community life for her, we do have a lot of reflections. And one of the reflections is that that this idea of belonging and friends and feeling like you have a place that wants you to be there has been tantamount to trying to figure out what we can have Shelby do, right? So once you leave school at 22, there is no special place. There is the community. And if the community doesn't know you, and you're out in the community trying to develop a job or a volunteer position or activities or friends, and no one knows you and no one understands you, you have to start from square one. And I think in reflecting about this, one of the things that I would have done very differently is had Shelby much more integrated into school and the community, right? I thought I was doing her a favor by keeping her safe and giving her lots of therapies and individualized attention. And it wasn't until Shelby let us know that she was really tired of being at home and how much she thrived once she got out with her peers and how much her communication and everything improved so much, we realized what a disservice we had done. So you'll see those pictures of her now. This is Shelby today with her favorite people. Shelby has selected 4 support staff who work for Shelby and are facilitated through our family, but they work for Shelby. And they are young, vibrant people who are out in the community doing the kinds of things that Shelby wants to do. They take her to the Torch Club, where Shelby has a great sense of community now with a lot of the people who now do know her, because now they've had an opportunity to know her. Next slide.
So we want to know, what does having a full life mean to you? And we'd love to have you put this in the chat for us. What are the and it can be a component, or it can be, you know, a whole paragraph if you want. But what does it mean? What does it look like? What does it sound like or feel like to have a full, meaningful life? And we'd love for you to add that to the chat. We're going to give you just about a minute or two to get that down, and we're going to be quiet so you can think about it. We're starting to see some messages roll in. So as they come in and you've finished, take a look at what other people have shared. These are all fantastic. If we put all of them together, don't you think that would make a truly a place where all of us could have a full and meaningful life? Thank you so much. If you're still typing, feel free to keep going. So we want you to hear not just from us, but some other ideas around the difference between inclusion and belonging. As Kristen shared, belonging is something that we've really started thinking about in this space in the last few years. And it makes a lot of sense now that we're thinking about it this way, but we want you to understand what the differences are kind of from a funny, I would say this is like a really easy to understand perspective, and it comes by way of the Othering and Belonging Institute at UC Berkeley. So let's hear about it, and hopefully you'll hear sound. If you don't, somebody wave at me.
Powell, the thing that's really standing out to me is the way he described the difference between belonging and inclusion. And he used a great example. He said that inclusion is like throwing a party. And as the host, you can pick the time, the date, the location, the food, the playlist, right? All the details are up to you. And then you just invite people in a welcoming way to be a part of the thing that you created. Whereas belonging is different, because belonging is like being a co-host. It's about co-creation. It's about being in community and knowing that not one person is responsible for all of the fine details, and that you get to work together in deciding how you want the party to look for the whole collective. And so my question for you is, how do you start to create more spaces that foster a sense of belonging rather than just including people into the thing that you created?
As an educator, I can say that I probably spent too much time trying to create places of belonging and not co-creating those places and spaces of belonging. And it's a good reminder that while we do this work in all of the different spaces, whether you're a family member or you're an educator or all of the other places and spaces that we support students and children and people, it's really incumbent of us to make sure that they're involved in building those places and spaces because we only have our lens and we need to include everyone. So the definition, let's see if I can get the slides turned. From the Othering and Belonging Institute, the definition for belonging is a powerful vision for creating a world where every person is seen, valued, and empowered. A world where each individual's humanity is recognized and celebrated, and the planet itself included in the circle of human concern. And I feel like when I look at all of the things that you shared in the chat about how, you know, what would it feel like to have a full life, it's so inclusive of this idea of belonging. So a resource that we really love to share is the 10 Dimensions of Belonging that Eric Carter and Elizabeth Biggs created. I know that Eric Carter had a couple presentations last year at ZIP, which is great, and he shared these updates. There was a change to add loved, which is such an important component of feeling a sense of belonging. And he says, belonging begins with presence. It's hard to feel like you belong if you're never or rarely part of the array of activities or events that make up the life of a community. And so as we're thinking about this and having a full life where we have belonging in every step of that, we have to be there in order to feel a sense of belonging. And so we really want to center the idea of where, you know, as we think about how we're creating these spaces, are we thinking about where people are currently present and where they aren't present, where they are not having that opportunity and building for it. So we're going to look, as we go through these next little bit, we want you to think about all the stages that a student could be in, because we have lots of families here, we have lots of teachers here, and sometimes we think when we're talking about things like inclusive college and high school diploma, we think, oh, that's for like the post or the secondary teachers to worry about. And what we really want to say is, if we wait that long to create places and spaces of belonging and include students, so they're ready to go out into the world where there aren't separate spaces for them, then we've waited too long and we haven't really planned for what a full life could really be. You want to add anything to that?
And you know, if you just go back to the previous slide for a second, Steph, it got me thinking about communication and the ability to be able to express what you know, that it's really hard to be heard and known if you don't have the ability to communicate and let people know who you are. And so just pondering that as we're thinking about what we're focused on early and all through our time at school, is to make sure that students are able to tell us and show what they know so that we truly can know them and others can know them too.
Thank you. So we're going to take a look at a short video, and this video comes from us from SPED Strategies. And we like this video because it really talks about and gives a really good visual for what we're hoping to build for. And part of the resources that we give you are intentional to help you have something to move forward with. And so if you're an educator and you feel like you are passionate about this work and you're an ally in this work, and you're like, but I keep running into some barriers, this could be a video that could help you have some of those conversations. And as families, as you're thinking through and planning and having conversations, whether it's with family members or even in the community or at your IEP meetings, this might be helpful information.
As educators, we know that we don't succeed unless every student succeeds. In 2015, the Every Student Succeeds Act gave us a new lens on an important reality. Data made it clear that even the best schools are struggling to serve some student populations, especially students with disabilities, in the ways we know they deserve. Why are students with disabilities struggling while their classmates thrive? To understand how we got here, we need to turn back the pages of our history books. While compulsory education laws were passed in all states by 1918, laws in the 1950s and 60s specifically excluded students with disabilities from school. It wasn't until the 1970s that districts were required to provide a free and appropriate public education for students with disabilities. In 1975, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA, was signed into law. After the passing of this act, schools began opening their doors to students with disabilities. At that time, the focus was on ensuring students with more severe or easy to observe disabilities, such as physical limitations, were able to attend school. Despite this progress, students with disabilities often experienced an education that was segregated from their peers. More recently, students with disabilities were integrated more broadly across school campuses and sometimes classrooms with their peers of the same age, but were provided instruction and materials that lowered the overall expectations for them. This parallel experience created by integration occurred as we evolved our understanding of what it means to be a student with a disability, to include students with more mild, invisible disabilities, such as learning differences or speech impairments. Despite bringing students into our buildings and classrooms, performance gaps highlight that students with disabilities are not yet fully included in the learning experiences that our schools offer. We have more work to do. So, what is the path forward? If we want every child to succeed, we have to stop seeing the performance gaps of our students with disabilities as a special education problem and realize that the solution lies with all of us. We must face the reality that our education system was not originally established to support all students. And so rather than asking students to conform to the environments adults create, we must instead create an environment that is responsive to the unique needs of all students. We don't need to fix students. We need to fix our systems of support for them so that every student can engage in grade level learning and achieve high expectations. This will require shifts in the way we think, operate, collaborate, use resources, and the way we problem solve when challenges arise. Doing this is not more work, but it is different work. When we do it well and students with disabilities succeed, everyone benefits. It will take a village. SPED Strategies is leading the effort to tackle this challenge. Join us.
All right, so it's going to require us to think about things differently and to, rebuild the way that we do things. And so we want to talk about how we really need to start all of our thinking as early as we can. And so there are ways that we really think that as families and early childhood educators are addressing the way that they support students with disabilities. It should be, as it said, the way that we support all students. And so focusing heavily on universal design for learning as we build lesson plans and units of study and educational spaces to ensure that they're accessible from the start. And then we can individualize as needed additional supports that might be needed. And Eric Carter, here's another one of our favorite quotes from him. He says, early segregation doesn't merely predict later segregation, it almost ensures it. The trajectory we establish in schools is quite likely to continue after graduation. We must establish a trajectory of full and meaningful participation when it comes to transition preparation. Locations matters. And so when we're talking about a full and complete life, we got to start early.
You know what it makes me think about too, Stephanie, is that we're talking about both social inclusion and academic inclusion. And just having social inclusion without academic inclusion is not true belonging, because it means that environments weren't set up for the people that they were designed.
Absolutely. And so we want to give you a little, when we can, we like to have a student representation, but we're going to pull in Ethan's statement from, he's a student from Reach Every Voice. And he says, do the people who design school systems stop to think about how big the disability community will grow to be? Anyone can become disabled at any time. Wouldn't it make sense to design systems that include authentic disability representation from our earliest years? And we talk a lot about early childhood education, and how large the spread is of what one preschooler versus another preschooler, what their skills are, what they're able to, how they're able to communicate, the ways that they're able to use their little bodies. And it's vast. It's a vast spread for every child. And so if we can start to think about how do we build those places and spaces to be inclusive of all bodies, of all little people, and we continue to move through our years in that belief that you need to be in a space to truly feel a sense of belonging and that we need to design for that, we're going to get a lot closer to the world that we're all hoping for, that you all listed all of the ways that we have a full and complete life. So what are some of the ways in early childhood? Well, we know that there's the benefits of early childhood. We could talk about that for a whole session, but the places that we see these inclusive opportunities being beneficial are in the places that Kristen said. So it's not just about social, although social is important. They gain social and play skills. They can develop behaviors, right? Children learn best from their peers. And so when we have opportunities for them to be together, they're learning some of those behavioral and dispositional foundational skills. It also gives them an opportunity to have greater independence. We're not, the ratios by nature give them a little bit more of an opportunity for that. And then they get to develop friends, both friends with and without disabilities. And they get to have more natural opportunities for communication. So when we create inclusive early childhood environments, we are according to Eric Carter's research, we are increasing the likelihood by having inclusive early childhood placements. We are increasing the likelihood that they're going to go on to high school to earn a diploma and even earn a college degree. Do you want to add anything to that?
And I think for our parents who, and I saw some folks in the chat that have fairly young children, I think I would have loved to hear that there were lots of opportunities beyond just a day program out of high school and transition, and that that whatever Shelby or anyone's child had interest in or wanted to do, they could pursue. And I think California has really taken some intentional steps to say, we expect, and the Lanterman Act supports this as well, we expect people with disabilities and people with intellectual and developmental disabilities to be able to work and be in the community and be included and involved in everything. And it's up to us as a system to support people to realize their greatest potential and to be fully included in the community. And so backward mapping from that, if we start off, like Stephanie said, in early segregation, we've sort of negated what we know to be true later. And so I think it just makes good sense now.
Absolutely. And so when we're talking about this, I think it's important that we really hit hard right now the importance of academics and the rigor that every student should have access to. The belief that students should be doing the same thing every day until they can show us that they know how, to do it. And we give them the same very early precursory skills until they've proven it, is not believing that students have the ability to learn. And we really love Reach Every Voice. They provide us a great opportunity to hear from students that are non-speaking. And Gordy shared that imagine, and I want you all to imagine this as he describes it. Imagine spending every day from age 5 to 21 looking at clocks, coins, and colors. Are you bored enough to riot? Are you defeated enough to unravel your shorts and eat them? I've been there and it sucks. If I could change just one thing about education before I die, it would be the idea that non-speaking people can't handle real academics. Do better. And we love this. We love Gordy, but we also believe that this is the case, that we shouldn't just have, inclusion isn't just a place in the classroom, that it really means a belief in high quality educational access, that students are given access to their grade level standards. And those grade level standards, we have lots of ways to adapt them to ensure that students with all levels of precursory skills can access the information. And we shouldn't be stuck with clocks. No child should be stuck with clocks, coins, and colors every day of their K-12 experience. So That's why we love the high quality IEP stuff so much. The high quality IEP project has really helped reframe the IEP process. And if you haven't seen their materials, we are super fans. They have materials for educators, they have materials for administrators, and they have family materials that help us change the way we talk about and plan for IEPs. They are strength-based focus, recognizing that every student comes in with a wealth of strengths, and we need to plan for the end. We need to be looking at what are our hopes for after they leave their school experience. What would that look like, and how do we build for it? And so looking at their toolkits is like that's just a plus for what we believe you should go do after you finish the SIP conference, because honestly, they have some really wonderful ways to be able to discuss planning with the end in mind.
And let me just add that that one of the reasons that high quality IEPs came into existence is because California has developed a new statewide IEP template that districts can use as an option. It's not mandated. That has basically reframed how we walk through an IEP process and think about students with disabilities from a strength-based and more person-centered standpoint. And that will be out in the fall for those of you who want to keep an eye out for that.
Isn't that exciting? It's so exciting. We're very excited. All right. I'm gonna let you hit this one.
So I will be vulnerable here and say that I am guilty of not presuming the level of competence that I should have in my own daughter. And along with that, the types of expectations that I should have had. And it wasn't until Shelby started going to school in an academic environment where she wasn't learning colors and coins anymore at home that that we realized that the one thing that was restricting her was us. And the main culprit of that was the fact that Shelby only had 6 pet cards, the picture cards, that she had on her regular board that said things like, yes, no, I don't know, I don't like this. And we think of ourselves, all those things don't need a card to understand that someone feels that way. It wasn't until Shelby started taking my face physically to do no, because she was tired of trying to find the no card or throwing something on the ground to let us know that she didn't want to do something. And the fact that she had a place to communicate more of what she knew, that she had an assessment at her school in the 5th grade that discovered that Shelby didn't need to have 6 picture cards. Shelby needed to have 7 layers of 12 picture cards or 12 icons. And you can imagine how many more things you can say when you have more words to say them. And so had we presumed competence sooner, I think Shelby would have had a very different experience, and we would have had a different experience with her in what we called behaviors, but was really communication.
Thank you.
So fast forward, so Shelby graduated from her high school with her peers and went on to do competitive integrated employment after transition. And had Shelby graduated today, because Shelby took all the same classes as her peers did, she took them aligned to her grade level standards. It was aligned coursework that she was able to access all the same classes. Shelby would be receiving her high school diploma on the alt pathway. For those of you who don't know about the alternative pathway to a high school diploma, students like Shelby and her peers, students who are eligible to take the alternate assessments is sort of how it's defined, are able to earn a high school diploma through an alternative pathway that leads to graduation, not a certificate, but with a diploma. And why is this important? Because we don't want to underestimate what the potential is for anyone or provide any false barriers. So we really see this as another piece towards equity for students with disabilities. And you'll see the resources there in the chat. And we hope that you'll take a look if you haven't been made aware of it yet.
We have such exceptional support in the chat. I'm just so grateful for all these links that keep getting dropped. Thank you so much for doing that. All right. Well, so we have to know what we're planning for, right? Like we can't just say, "Oh yeah, I want them to go on and have a happy life." But like, yes, that is important, but we also have to plan. We have to have an active plan. And so we need to think about things like employment and post-secondary pathways and what those look like and why does it matter? And so we're going to share a couple of things that are sometimes considered like myths and give you a little bit of a like what's the reality of each of these myths that come up. So is a certificate of completion good enough? That's what's been available for a long time, right? Is it good enough? And here's some of the realities of this. People believe that students with extensive support needs don't really need a high school diploma to get a job and that a certificate of completion is fine. And that's been kind of the common belief for a long time. But the truth is that getting access to a high school diploma pathway increases access to grade level standards in ways that it has never been available in a consistent way across the state of California for our students. And higher expectations lead to better preparation towards employment. That's why we go to school in the first place. And then we also know that 90% of employers prefer hiring young people with a diploma. And 66% of all applications for jobs ask if or require you to mark a box that says you have your high school diploma. So when we think about how much that limits or eliminates opportunities for employment, it's pretty significant, which is why we want to make sure that every student has access to their grade level standards and has an opportunity to earn that high school diploma. You want to hit the other myth?
Yes. And the other one is that students with extensive support needs, those who earn certificates or have earned certificates, now earn diplomas, don't need a diploma because they'll only be able to find work as volunteers and in supported employment situations that don't require a diploma. I think what I'll just say about this, I think we know the truth is that students, all people have a right to work, but in particular in California under the Lanterman Act, people with intellectual and developmental disabilities have a right to work under the Lanterman Act. And that's with whatever level of supported employment that they need. So for Shelby, when she did her competitive integrated employment, she had 100% support. So she would go to her job and she would have someone go along with her and help her with every aspect of that job. That was her accommodation for that job. And that was her right to get that support under the Lanterman Act. And so I think the overarching takeaway here is that why would we put in place barriers to anyone? And if a student takes all the coursework they need, like Shelby for their high school diploma, why wouldn't they get it? So I think we've kind of come to a new place in the state where our policymakers agree. And so that's why the alternative pathway to a high school diploma was developed and put into law. It's also something that's allowed under federal law.
And so you already got these dropped in because we have Rockstar support on the backside. If you are unfamiliar with the alt pathway and what it means, and you're curious, or if you've heard us do a presentation on that before and you just need access to these materials, we have a multitude of resources available on this. We have some parent-friendly handouts. We also have our slide deck. For educators, we have a Padlet and an ongoing community of practice. It's actually happening right now as we speak. Heather's handling that one for us solo today while we're presenting. But we have a number of resources to help at any stage that you are supporting. So if you are an educator or a parent of a child that's in early childhood education and you're thinking, wait, high school, that's so far away. One, it is, but two, I have a senior. It's so much closer than you think. It happens really fast and we have to know what we're aiming for. And so I just, I feel like it doesn't negate anyone at any level in the education process from not having this information and understanding what is the alternative pathway and how do we make sure at every IEP meeting we're talking about standards alignment, that our goals are truly aligned to those state standards. So I hope you take a look at those. And I think SIP has our presentation on the alt pathway archived. If not, and you can just contact us and I will give you a YouTube link to one of the presentations if you'd like to know more.
And if you are a district or LEA or school that wants to be part of a community of practice, then you still need to do some work on it as a system. Stephanie here and our friends at High Quality IEPs together run a community of practice monthly that provides support. So just reach out to us for more information.
And we'll have our contact info at the very end, so you'll get a chance to see that. All right, well, we talked a lot about getting to a diploma, but now we want you to see what is inclusive college, because we know that many people have never even heard of inclusive college before. And now I've lost my mouse because it's—
And while she's looking for her mouse, we'll just let you know that today we're at Stanford. Stanford is one of the newest universities in California that is creating an inclusive college program for students with intellectual and developmental disabilities, along with some of our CSUs and UCs who are here today working together to try to create more opportunities for our students with disabilities.
So let's hear from some of these student scholars across the nation, hopefully. The mouse is here. There we go.
Hi everyone, I'm a student here at Georgia Tech. We are asking students with intellectual disabilities around the country what's fun about going to college.
The chance to not be around your parents.
The best thing about being in college is the food, being in a dorm, getting to meet new people.
You have a bed, you have a sink, you have a desk, you have a TV, you have a refrigerator. You can also hang up posters anywhere.
Great mocha latte, the best mocha latte I ever have.
There are more than 420,000 school-age students with intellectual disability, but only 2% of them are likely to attend college after high school.
I wanted to come to KU because of the classes and I wanted to take choir. And also I took American Sign Language.
Classes I'm taking right now are Business Law 1, Intermediate Algebra, and English Composition 2.
It's cool to meet new people. It's fun to chat with the guys and the managers and the coaches.
I want to be more independent and to join the sorority as my mom did.
I like to hang out with friends, watch sports, and I've joined the Southernmost Coral Restoration Club.
High school, I have to be with a teacher all the time, so it was not like any independent there. I was excited to have like a college life.
There are more than 300 inclusive post-secondary education programs around the country.
Having students with disabilities in classes has compelled our faculty to reflect on their practice. So it actually makes us better teachers, makes us better professors, makes us better scholars and researchers.
It's really got people to realize that we have to focus on universal access and doing things in universal design, everything that we do.
The great thing about including students with intellectual disabilities at KU is actually it makes the entire university a better university. It teaches students to appreciate difference, and it creates a more caring environment because students support each other.
This has united, I think, our campus faculty, staff, and students. They have the opportunity to network and get mentors and other social skills and career development that their peers have had for many years. Now they have.
I want to go into real estate in the future.
My goal is to be a teacher at a preschool.
I would know that one a bed and breakfast.
Political science is one of 3 career goals I have in mind.
My credo is maybe work in the Kansas State Capitol.
I would like to have my own food truck because I want to have pizza, have some burgers, maybe have some tacos, nachos.
College has changed me because it's helped me grow up, like getting a job or living on your own.
It's great, and you have a lot of support when you get here.
If I can do it, you can do it.
It's a time to be serious. It's a time to learn. I have the skills. I have the skills to live on my own one day.
Think higher. Think college for students with intellectual disability. Think, access, employment, equity, options, diversity, independence, confidence, friendship. College is possible for students with intellectual disability. Take the first step at thinkhighered.net, a project of Think College.
And we're also going to plug our website because we are the California Center. Think College is the national center for supporting inclusive college programs. And I love listening to these scholars share their dreams, share the things that they have gotten out of their college experience. Because I think that it helps us begin the process of dismantling the ableist ideas that we have where we're not presuming competence. They give us really salient understanding of what are their goals in life and how does the opportunity to attend an inclusive college program help them get closer to those goals. And when we think about planning for our children and supporting as an educator, supporting students, we have to know what we're aiming for. And so not every student, we have college and career ready has been kind of the mantra in California for a long time. And that doesn't necessarily mean that every child is going to go to college or directly into a career. But what it does is it says that that's our aim for every child. And we need to be inclusive of all students, even those who have been historically not part of that conversation. Now we have opportunities. And you can see across California, the stars represent the programs that currently exist. We have more than 23 colleges and universities and we're hoping they're going to continue to grow, not only growing the programs that already exist to be able to have more scholars, but also increasing the number of programs available in more areas. Because you can see we've got some serious holes in our state where there aren't programs. Now, they're pretty rural areas, but there are families that live in those areas and we want to expand and be able to support them. We have some resources. I'm just going to go through these couple things before we go on to something else. And I did see, hopefully that answer from Kristen in the chat was helpful. The center has come out with a few resources that you are welcome to take a look at to see what we've been doing. There's the legislative report that was sent at the beginning of the year to the legislature, and it kind of outlines what we've been doing in this last year. Our website has program details for all of the college programs in California and gives you links to their websites and gives you an idea and pictures of California scholars, which is fun to see all of those wonderful scholars. And then the newsletter is something that we do quarterly, and you can sign up to be to receive the newsletter and hear what's going on in inclusive college across California. And a newsletter is a great way to keep it top of mind because it's not too often that it's going to be annoying in your inbox, but often enough to not let it become something that you don't think about. You'll be able to be reminded, oh, that's right. This is something we're planning for, and what is it looking like? What's the landscape look like? Can I talk on that one?
Sure. So as we catapult into adulthood and independent living, again, as parents, it's a hard transition to make when you have a child, especially sometimes our children that are non-speaking and that require more support tend to get experience sometimes more ableism than others in the system. And so as we're talking about that change, we know that there are certain things, because we've learned them from our college programs, that would be helpful to think about before college, and even thinking about that much earlier than college. And these core competencies are, and so some of you may know about the UC Davis Redwood Seed Scholars Program. It's the first four-year program in California, and I think they're graduating their second four-year cohort this year. And all of their scholars have moved out into the community and have jobs out in the community. And what their core competencies are, you'll see here. These are things that can start being practiced in kindergarten. These also are things that in order for us to teach our students with more significant disabilities, we need to make sure that they have the communication skills and tools to be able to practice these things too. So some of them are functional skills, some of them are social skills, And some of them are skills that need to be learned through academics. And what the UC Davis Redwood Seed Scholars have found is that when many of the students start the program, they have not been taught to read. Many of them have spent most of their life in separate settings, in multi-grade level classes. They haven't necessarily had access to their grade level standards or higher level thinking. And they're coming to this program, and the majority of them are learning to read. And for those who are not able to learn to read, they're learning how to use technology to learn to read. And so those are the things that we should be thinking about much sooner, because it's really our jobs in K-12 to get students like we would any other student. And I'm thinking back about all the things that you all put about having a full life in the beginning. These are the same things that every person wants, but it makes it extra hard when you can't do all of these things on your own, and you're relying on someone to make sure that you're able to accomplish these things for a full life. And I think the core competencies are some good things to be thinking about. I know as a parent, I wasn't thinking about a number of these things, and I wish I would have been.
So the next few slides are resources we're going to point you to. We're not going to go in depth, but they're helpful resources as you're thinking about all these different transition points, both as educators who are helping students develop skills, but also as parents, because this is a partnership. But that student has a whole day. And some of that's at school and some of that's at home. And we want to make sure that we're working in partnership to build these skills. And some are contextualized better at home and some are contextualized better in educational settings. I do want to mention, we talked about the community of practice. If you can access the Padlet from the home base document, we just added the flyer for next school year on there. And so you should be able to access it. If you're having any trouble finding anything we talked about today, you email me and I will get it to you. Okay, I want to make sure everybody gets what they need. All right, so looking here, this is a resource that SIP created. And it's talking about transition skills from preschool to adult civic life. And you can see what are some of the skills. Each of these boxes walks through the different components and things we should be working on every stage of the way to know that students are being prepared, that children are growing up with opportunities to be prepared to have positive civic engagement and be part of their community, their greater community after they graduate. And so we definitely, that's one of the things listed in the Padlet, or excuse me, on the home base document. Please take a look at that. There's some really great information there, and it's a good place or a good resource to keep with you when you're having IEP meetings, because it can help narrow down. Sometimes it feels really big to be coming up with goals, but these are some really good identified areas that help build towards that life. All right, and then, oh, I think I skipped one. Nope, I don't know if I skipped one. This is a resource that I believe this one's from Utah. Utah's education department created some mapping tools, and they're actually incredibly helpful in being able to think through all of the stages and what types of skills do students need. These are, you can see emotional regulation, independent, like adult living skills, social interactions, and self-advocacy. Those are all skills that we need to have a full and complete life. And they're broken down by age group. So it makes it a little easier to start identifying what should we be working on at what point. I'm going to apologize to you if you can hear the very exciting laughter that's going on. It's distracting to us. So if you're hearing it, I'm very sorry. And if you're not, then that's exciting too. But all right, so Kristen's going to give us her hindsight, which thank you for sharing so much about your story today.
It's my pleasure. And if we can save anyone else from having to have this same hindsight, then it's all worth it. So as a parent, I look back and think we should have had much higher academic expectations and communication so much earlier. And I think those go hand in hand, because you can't know what someone knows unless they can tell you or show you that they know it. We have definitely should have had our extended family and Shelby spend much more time together. I think we scared our family because Shelby was so complex that we didn't lean on them the way that we should have, and that deprived them and Shelby of experiences and knowing her now that we have to go back and fix. The last one is really underestimating the power of inclusion and belonging and being alongside peers. It wasn't until she went into a school where she was around a lot of other people that she became motivated to communicate with her assistive technology device. So, you know, if your parents know everything about you, there's no reason that you would need to use a communication device because you have all your little idiosyncrasies that they know. The final thing is I'm going to tell you a 2-minute story, and this is Shelby at the Torch Club, and I took her not long ago myself because I was filling in for one of her support staff, which I'll let you know, Shelby doesn't appreciate me as her support staff. She would much prefer her regular support staff, but she tolerated me taking her into the Torch Club. And when I got in there, we were sitting in the front and she was sitting in her wheelchair. And these 3 women came in. Pam is the one in front. And they didn't know I was her mother because Shelby always comes with her support team. And so they walked up and they said, why do you have Shelby sitting here? And I said, because she's going to listen to the music. And they said, well, Shelby never sits here. Shelby gets out of her chair and she sits over here on the side table on the banquette, and we sit on either side of her. And I was like, oh, okay. And so they said, step aside, we're going to show you how it's done. So the 3 of them took her out of her chair, put her on the side of the table, folded up her wheelchair. One went to get the water, and they supported Shelby through the time that we were at the Torch Club. And apparently, this is what they do every week. And had Shelby not been going here, especially without me, she would have never had this experience. And these community members who are now her friends also would not have had the experience. And they've been coming every week because they want to see and support Shelby. And so as the music time ended, they said, "Oh, are you her new support staff?" And I said, "No, I'm her mom." And they said, "Oh my gosh, we're so sorry." And I said, "No, this made my day." That to me is belonging, not just being there, but being included in the community.
So our final reflections are, we want you to leave thinking about what can you do next in all of your various places and spaces as you interact with young people with disabilities. What are the small steps that you can take? And just think of one small step. It doesn't have to be like this massive change in your life, but what's one thing that maybe you can change or do differently? And we want you to, you can share that in the chat or you can just keep that for yourself. But we want you thinking, what's the one small step you're going to take from here? And I know that we have a slide that says Q&A, but we're right on time. So we also want to give you our contact information because we kept saying, reach out to us. So here's our contact information. If you would like to reach out to us, either of us is great. We will both respond. You can put both of us on it. It's up to you. And we would love to have feedback. It's always helpful to know if this is something that worked for you or what we could do differently to make sure that the impact is our intent moving forward. And I think those things are available on the home base document as well. Thank you so much. Look at that. And then, yes, please bring these conversations to IEPs. The resources are there as well. Depending on where you are in your IEP journey, it's helpful to have any number of those resources. And so thank you so much for being with us today. We hope that you've enjoyed the sub-conference. We know we have, and we look forward to hearing from some of you, hopefully in the near future. So thank you so much. And then I think I'm supposed to give you this last slide as well.
Yes, thank you so much, Kristen and Stephanie. What a powerful story and journey, and thank you for sharing all of the resources. Thank you, everyone, for being here today and for your continued commitment to students with disabilities and their families. Our shared mission is to design an educational system that innovates and elevates and creates meaningful, positive experiences to all learners from early childhood and beyond.